In Book 10 of the Odyssey, Odysseus recounts the first time he met Circe, a witch who had used a magic potion to turn his crew into pigs. Warned by the god Hermes and given an antidote, one can still imagine Odysseus' feelings when Circe mixes him a drink. Quote, "In a golden bowl she mixed a potion for me to drink, stirring her poison in, her heart a-swirl with evil." End quote. This piece of pottery, from the British Museum, is not a bowl but a krater, a type of mixing cup that was used in this scene. This krater was crafted of clay pottery, not of gold as Circe's krater was. It's about 38 centimeters wide and 30 centimeters high, shallow enough to mix wine with water, as well as honey and other spices, and big enough to serve 4 to 6 people at a meal. What it offers us, though, is a connection, not to the world of the Odyssey, but to the world of Homer in the 8th century BC, the age in which this krater was crafted, as well as the age in which Odysseus, Achilles, and other heroes were brought to life by history's greatest epic poet. The English word krater, with a C, originates with this type of vessel, a mixing cup common in ancient Greece. There it began with the letter kappa and began with the same k sound. The vessel's broad mouth and shallow bowl made mixing wine with water very easy. Honey and other spices were often added to the wine as well. Many cocktail glasses today have the same wide mouth for the same reason, to aid with mixing the ingredients. It was the Romans who replaced the k with their letter C, which they also pronounced k, and it was probably an Italian who first looked at a volcano and noticed the depressed area at the top had the same dimensions as a mixing vessel and dubbed it a krater, a word that was later expanded to describe the impact sites of meteors on the faces of moons and planets. When we look at this krater, we notice that it is made of white-orange clay, and the colors that are drawn on the sides are black and brown. The largest image on the side of the krater is one of a ship. This ship is drawn in a unique fashion called composite. Composite art was art that was used in the ancient world, in Egypt, Mycenae, and Crete, and this style made a whole image out of the recognizable features of its parts. For example, look at this ancient Egyptian painting of a man hunting birds. His face, legs, and arms are shown from the side, the view from which they most look like legs and a face. But look at his chest, his eye, and his hands. They are shown as they look when he is facing the viewer. This painting is a composite of the most recognizable views of a person. A group of artists in the early 20th century, known as Cubists and led by Pablo Picasso, would revive and adapt this style to great acclaim. Now, look back at the krater, the front of the ship, the prow. We see it as if from the side. It is pushing through the water. We see the battering ram. Sitting atop the ram is a bird who is hitched a ride. At the top of the prow, we also see a wavy line that looks like it could be a serpent or perhaps a banner waving in the breeze. We see the back of the ship from the side as well. 2 steering oars await the pilots of the voyage to come. And on the side of the stern, if we look closely, we see a type of shield called a dipylon. A dipylon was round at the top and bottom, but it was pinched in the middle, like the shape of a violin. The dipylon was lighter than a round shield, easier to grip and wield on the battlefield. A composite image is a mix of perspectives. Now look at the middle of the ship. There are 2 rows of rowers seated on port and starboard as they would look if we looked down on the ship from above. If we look closer at the rowers, we notice that the perspective shifts again. We see them as if from the side, sitting on benches, their oars reaching down into the water. We notice their physical features as well. Their broad shoulders, their thick legs, their faces, they all look alike. There are no eyes or lips, just the shapes of heads, torsos, legs, and oars. Altogether, this is a composite image of a ship and its crew. The artist has cleverly manipulated the image to show the likeness of the ship, as well as its crew. If we take time to count, we notice that the top row has 19 rowers, and the bottom row has 20. What has happened to the missing rower? We look to the left of the boat for that answer, and we see a man. The man on this crater is drawn in black. When we look at his body, we see large thighs and a broad chest, the ideal human form for winning foot races or rowing for miles and miles across open seas. Now, in the image of these two figures to the left of the ship, we find another element of ancient art. These figures are drawn hieratically. In hieratic art, the most important characters in a scene were shown as much larger than the minor characters. And clearly, just by the size, we know that this man and this woman must be of some importance. The man is a member of the crew. The numbers say so. What could he have done to have been more important than his crewmates? Before we explain the man's importance, let's look at the woman to the man's left. And it is important to note that this is a person drawn as a woman. In fact, the curator at the British Museum reveals that she is the first woman to be depicted as such on a piece of Greek pottery or in Greek art. We note her womanliness by the long curly hair streaming out behind her head. We look down below her torso and see a beautiful patterned skirt. Look at the detail which emphasizes the skill of the weavers who made it. This period of art was known as the late geometric period, and the geometric weave revealed on this skirt is very detailed and intentionally meant to show the class and the beauty of this woman. This is the end of the geometric age, the beginning when artists are just beginning to experiment with drawing and sculpting the human form as it truly looks. In the woman's right hand, we see a round object, a crown or a tambourine. Her left hand isn't holding the hand of the man. It's grabbed by him, almost like she's being taken away on the ship against her will. This reminds us of stories from Greek mythology of men taking women away with them. We think of Jason and Medea, the princess of Colchis, who took the golden fleece from her father's palace and ran away with Jason back to Greece. Or we think of the story of Theseus and Ariadne, who left Crete together after they killed the Minotaur lost below the palace of King Minos. This story is the one noted by the curators at the British Museum. They interpret the circle in the woman's hands as the circle of light which lit the dark labyrinth for Ariadne, her lover, and his fellow Athenians. But for Homerphiles, we can't help but look at an image of a departing man and woman and not think of Paris and Helen leaving Sparta, bound for Troy, and setting in motion the events of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Helen removes her crown to take flight with Paris and cross the Aegean Sea with him. If we zoom in on the man and the woman, we see squiggles written on the pot between them. These are not letters. They're not even writing. They're just geometric shapes meant to fill in the space. And this is significant because at the time that this pot was created in Attica, Greece, in the late 8th century BCE, writing didn't exist. In fact, the crater was made at the end of a 300-year dark age, during which the previous form of writing in the Aegean, called Linear B, had been lost to humanity, and newer types of writing were being developed. Egypt still had writing, so did Phoenicia, but Greek had no common alphabet and no widely read texts. In fact, at the very moment that this vase was made near Athens, across the Aegean, In the city of Smyrna and on the island of Chios, wonderful stories were circulating about legends passed down from the Trojan War and about the hero Odysseus. People there were trying to develop writing and spread its use throughout the Aegean region in order to share and preserve these fantastic tales. This Greek krater is an important link to the dawn of Western civilization, a time when a dark age was ending, a bright new age was dawning, and with it, arts and literature and other essential aspects of culture that remain with us to this very day, and which preserve the tale of Odysseus and Circe and other amazing stories.